welcome to Scrollin', a podcast about the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm Ket.
I'm Davius.
This is episode number 56. Let's talk about these patch notes. This is PTS version 7.1.0. It's called Waking Flame. This is the third installment of the Gates of Oblivion sort of year-long schedule of content. It's a 2-dungeon pack. The dungeons are called Red Petal Bastion in Glenumbra, and then there's the Dread Cellar located in Blackwood.
I do have to say, I got to jump in here. This is the first time in my memory that I can actually remember being excited, like really excited for the intriguing story possibility of dungeons coming out. Both of these kind of backgrounds to these stories of these dungeons, it really intrigues me.
I haven't really looked into it. Have you read a description or something?
So the Red Petal Bastion is there's the Knights of the Rose. Apparently they're like the Knights of Wayrest. Like their history is they were like the force for the king of Wayrest, and they were his like special knights. And apparently they were very anti-Daedric, and then all of a sudden they started using Daedric stuff, and they became corrupt. And so this dungeon is like you going to see like what happened, or at least that's what I read about it. And the Dread Cellar is apparently where the Empire. It's like where they put all of their people they imprisoned there.
It's Australia.
Yeah, there you go. It's Australia of ESO. And so you're going to figure out like what kind of people, what kind of stuff they put in their dungeons, essentially. Which both seem kind of intriguing stories to me. Like I like the idea of like this really honorable knight group that something corrupted them, and so they went downhill. And then I like the idea of trying to figure out what the heck somebody like as powerful as the Empire, put in their dungeon.
I bet that Dread Cellar, there's probably some disturbing imagery in there.
There's some weird stuff down there.
Weird torture devices and stuff. They gave previews for these. If you go to twitch.tv/Bethesda, they did a live stream a week or so ago where they don't play through it. They don't show any mechanics or anything, but they just kind of chit-chat and show you what stuff looks like and talk about the vibe and some of the lore and stuff like that. So if you want to get a preview of that, you can do that. You can check that out, or you can just log into PTS and just start running those dungeons right now with if you can get some people together. Just like with a normal dungeon pack, you get the usual stuff. You can earn body markings, mementos, titles, housing items, and of course, a bunch of new armor sets. What are you laughing about?
I'm sorry, it always makes me mad. Are titles the least exciting thing, like reward in the game?
There's like a couple of titles that I would like to have, but the only desirable ones it's like such outlandish achievements that I'm never gonna even try.
I just feel like you can't even see people's names half the time to see what a title. I'm trying to think of like a title I've seen on a player that I thought, wow, that's a really cool title. The only one that comes to mind is Battleground Butcher because I have it on like all the characters.
I think you can earn a title of Witch, which I would like to get. I think you have to do like those special,
like a holiday
writs
thing?
Or something. Yeah, some holiday thing.
Okay.
It'd be cool to get the Witch one, but yeah, mementos are dumb too because you actually have to like. Yeah, you actually have to like quick slot them for them to even be useful at all. Although there are some, I have one memento that the animation lasts like 2 minutes, and your character can just go on and do whatever they want to do while it's happening. Like if there was more like that, that would be cool because it adds a cool like visual flavor to your character while you're just hanging out or whatever.
That's a good point. Mementos are like almost really cool. Almost.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's just one where you like stand there and do an animation and then it's over, I don't like that. But there's one that's like you activate it and it makes these like glowing green leaves just swirl all around you, and then you can go and do a boss fight or whatever, and it continues.
That is cool, but
for like 2 minutes.
You make a great point. The fact that you have to slot them, like quick slot them, it just makes them not usable. I mean, there's so many other like actually important things you have to quick slot that quick slotting a memento just almost doesn't make sense.
Yeah, mementos are dumb. But what's not dumb are armor sets. So let's talk about the armor sets.
Great segue.
Thank you. We'll start with the Dread Cellar. The light armor set in there is called Scorian's Feast. It gives you a line of Max Magicka, Magicka Recovery, and weapon and spell damage. And remember that it gives you weapon and spell damage. That's going to be a theme throughout all of these, and really kind of a theme for this update. Just about any offensive stats that are being given, you're getting both stamina and magicka stats. So that's pretty cool. 5-piece bonus. When you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, you gain an imbued aura for 10 seconds. And that grants you and 3 group members 307 magicka and stamina recovery. It has a 20-second cooldown, so 10-second duration, 20-second cooldown. But if you do a fully charged heavy attack while the imbued aura is active, you consume that aura and gain an overflow aura for 10 seconds, so another 10-second duration. And that turns that 307 recovery into 307 weapon and spell damage. So my first thought was like, well, you could just do like 2 back-to-back heavy attacks and just get straight to the damage. You could do that, but because of the 20-second cooldown, the best possible case scenario, you're going to have a 50% uptime on that damage anyway. So you may as well just let that recovery time happen, just so you're getting some benefit out of it. Seems like maybe an okay set for a healer, but honestly, I'm not super excited about this one.
Yeah, this one was a struggle for me because it seems like, especially with my Magplar Davius build right now, where he's all about giving buffs, it seems like this would be the perfect set for him, but it just doesn't excite me enough right now with what it does for me to want to use it, which is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of surprising to me because it is a magicka set, but if I was to swap it, he does Spell Power Cure and Powerful Assault, but to me, I don't think I could replace Powerful Assault with this because Powerful Assault is so much easier to keep up. I can do 100% uptime. And this is the exact same weapon damage. Now, you do get the recovery, but recovery is just not as valuable nowadays. And
that's what I think.
And so I think that's a struggle. I wish it gave a bigger weapon and spell damage buff. I think that's what I would like to see from it.
Yeah, I think in both PvE and PvP, there's not a huge need for recovery buffs right now. Like recovery is kind of easy to come by. So yeah, just having a 50% uptime on that damage, which is the only thing people are going to care about. I think if it was more damage, it would make it worth it. But I don't know if that 307 basically is just giving you a 50% uptime on an additional Julianos bonus. Doesn't seem super enticing to me.
Maybe there's something for it in PvE where if you have like a trial group that's already has, Powerful Assault on a group member and another group member has this and it's just stacking them. Maybe there's something there for it, but
yeah, maybe so. But let's move on. Rush of Agony is the medium armor set. You get stamina recovery, weapon and spell damage, and offensive penetration, both kinds. And then for the 5-piece, when you deal direct damage with a gap closer or a pull ability, you pull enemies within 10 meters to you. After 2 seconds, deal physical damage in a 7-meter AoE, and it has an 8-second cooldown. Here's the kicker. The pull will not apply crowd control immunity. It breaks the CC immunity rules. That's pretty wild. How do you feel about that one, man? I've been thinking about this one. I want to hear your thoughts, though.
My initial thought is we do PvP mostly, and Battlegrounds mostly when it comes to PvP. What happens when there's 6 of these in a battleground?
Yeah,
are we just getting yo-yoed around the entire match?
Surely they'll at least make the set itself apply its own temporary immunity. You would have to think, right?
But that's CC immunity. Is there going to be a separate CC immunity just for this set?
Yeah, you're right. Like, what if you and I team up? We both put this set on, and we just want to troll everyone, and we just
pull them back and forth,
and we just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I can't imagine that that's going to be allowed to be the case.
It just seems. I did read that if you have CC immunity, this set does respect you having CC immunity, so we'll pull you in. But if a team has this and they're purposely not doing abilities that's going to give you CC immunity, they can just pull you I mean, think about a pre-made 4 group that has this, and they just tell themselves, hey, don't throw any CC immunity on these guys, and we'll just bounce them around between us.
Oh, yeah. Or even like not even trying to troll like that, just being strategic and like trying to wipe teams.
Yeah.
You could have someone charge into the team with, say, like Stampede. It's going to pull everyone into them, and they're not CC immune. So now you can, maybe have the remote totem, the Necromancer remote totem there to now fear them all, or just have a Nightblade to just cast fear on them all. So they're all pulled in, then they get stunned. Now all 4 of your team members just ult dump them while they're all gathered together and stunned. It's going to be real easy to land a coordinated ult dump if you have somebody with this set and you're all on comms and you're ready for it.
Yeah. Or, I mean, we'll talk about this later, but think about if you're getting yo-yoed and somebody throws, the Jesus beam on you. We'll talk about some updates to the Jesus beam.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of opportunities for some real trolly, real kind of toxic gameplay. They say that they felt like it needed that CC immunity thing because they thought the set was too weak without it, but there's got to be like a million other things they could try to beef it up a little bit. I really hope, we got a long ways to go before this thing goes live. I really hope they keep looking at that. That seems like it could be a real pain to have in the environment.
Yeah, I think this is one that after some testing in PTS, they'll see some pretty wild situations that hopefully will cause them to make some slight changes.
I'm looking forward to seeing the forum rants about this set. I have to think there's some incoming rants.
Grab your popcorn, go read the forums about this set right here.
The heavy set is called Crimson Oath's Rive, R-I-V-E. Gives you a line of armor, a line of max health, another line of armor, and then the 5-piece. When you use an ability that applies a major or minor buff to yourself or an ally, send a wave of energy that reduces the armor of nearby enemies within 12 meters by 3541 for 15 seconds. And that can happen every 12 seconds, but it only happens if an enemy is within range, so you don't waste a cooldown, which is really cool.
That's an awesome add-in for this set.
Grizzly Khan says this is going to go on his tank. I think this is going to go on my Magcro.
Yeah.
Despair.
It has to, right? That's the first thing I think of when I see the set is your Magcro Despair. It is the defile, debuff type of build type of set. It's perfect for that.
Yeah, I think this is going to go on a lot of people's builds. It's easy to proc. It's just when you apply a major or minor buff to yourself or an ally, so you cast your armor buff, and then this thing procs. It's an easy 100% uptime. And I think the tooltip is just the right amount. Reduces their armor by 3541. That's basically equivalent to like what the Spriggan or Spinner 5-piece bonus gives you for penetration. So if you're applying, like you're in a battleground and you apply this debuff to all the enemies around you, then you're essentially giving all of your allies the Spinner and Spriggan 5-piece bonus on top of whatever else they have going on in their builds.
Yeah, that's a great point. This is one of those, just talking strictly from a BG perspective here, a Battleground perspective. This is one of those sets that is going to be one of those underappreciated sets that, in the sense that it will not show up in the score sheets, but it will massively benefit your team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just the fact that it's so easy to use, it's a big area, permanent uptime, it'll be really popular. The thing that gives me pause about Crimson Oath is that it's a heavy armor set, and there's another new set that I want to use on my Magcro, and it's also a heavy armor set. And I'm typically kind of averse to making heavy armor builds, but if I want to do this thing, then I'll have no other choice. So we'll see. I might actually end up making a heavy armor build.
You got to join the club. Join the heavy armor club. It's a great club.
It might happen. The monster set is called Magma Incarnate. The 1-piece gives you magicka and stamina recovery. That's unique. It's pretty cool. We're in a meta now where 1-piece monster sets are more common than 2-piece monster sets. So having that as an option is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, that's a really nice add-in for something that doesn't exist right now.
The 2-piece, when you heal yourself or a group member with a single target heal ability, grant the lowest health group member minor courage and minor resolve for 10 seconds. So that's a damage and resistance buff. After 10 seconds, Daedric energy will then bounce to nearby group members up to 3 times, applying those same buffs, Minor Courage and Minor Resolve, for another 10 seconds. And then it has a 15-second cooldown. So if my calculations are correct, I think everyone's going to basically have a 10-second uptime and then 5 seconds of downtime on those 2 buffs.
Which is really not bad. I honestly, when I read this set, I think that this becomes, at least in my personal opinion, this becomes a really popular monster set for support builds.
It seems like fitting for a healer for sure.
Well, it just seems like, with the healer monster sets right now, you have to really worry with the changes. You have to really worry about your spell damage. And this is a really nice option for support builds that don't have a lot of spell damage to really give, good support for the team still. I really would love to find a way to put this on Davius. I don't think I'll have a way to do it, but he's all about kind of providing the buffs for the teams.
Yeah, it seems like a great support set. Those are really rare buffs. Minor Courage, Minor Resolve. There's very few sources of those. So if that's like important for a group to have, then that's an easy way to have a pretty good uptime on those. All right, so that's that. The Red Petal Bastion, the other dungeon. So the light armor set in that dungeon is called Thundercaller. You get offensive penetration, weapon and spell damage, another line of weapon and spell damage, and then dealing damage with a fully charged heavy attack calls a bolt of lightning at your target, dealing shock damage and leaving a 4-meter crater at their location for 6 seconds. And that crater deals shock damage each second, has a 12-second cooldown. So basically a 50% uptime on that dot damage, which is kind of like Grothdar. It has a 50% uptime. But then it has that initial burst damage when you complete that heavy attack. So probably mostly fitting for PvE environments, although if that initial heavy attack burst is pretty strong, I could see some people using it in PvP as well.
Yeah, in PvP, that 4 meters seems really small for the crater to really do anything with.
Yeah, and like for like a ground effect, people are just going to walk right around it.
Yeah, and we've said this before in past episodes, but I'm just not crazy about heavy attack proc sets. I don't like doing a fully charged heavy attack to get things.
Yeah,
going.
It's not exciting for you and me, but I can tell you heavy attack builds are kind of back. There's quite a few people running heavy attack builds. So I could see this maybe be enticing for some of those players. It could also pair really well with a Vatishran two-hander on the back bar, which is not super uncommon for Magicka builds to use. And you could have that charged up, do a heavy attack, proc both of those. If you're like a Warden or a Necromancer, you could have Sub-Assault or Blast Bones timed up with it as well, and an ultimate. It could be a really powerful combo if that ends up being a fairly strong proc.
One thing that stood out to me, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I feel like it's not super common to have offensive penetration for the 2-piece bonus.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It could make a lot of value just for the 2-piece.
Yeah, I could see a lot of people just pulling it as a 2-piece set to kind of as a filler just to get extra penetration.
Yeah, I could see that. So that seems all right. Honestly, I don't expect that one to be like super popular, to be quite honest. But it seems like, sorry, Fly, I got him. It seems like one that maybe some people will use, but I doubt we see a lot of it.
Yeah.
Now, I think we will see quite a bit of this next one.
Oh, man. This is my favorite one. This is a Davius set if I've ever seen one.
Named after our very own Grizzly Khan. This one's called a Grizzly Gourmet. A medium armor set called a Grizzly Gourmet. It gives you maximum stamina, weapon and spell damage, and offensive penetration. The 5-piece, you get an extra 526 max stamina, and then dealing damage with a light attack grants you a stack of Baker's Delight for 5 seconds. When you gain 3 stacks, you create a sweet roll next to your target for 5 seconds. If you or an ally touches the sweet roll, both you and your ally gain one of the following effects. Those effects are: restore 1593 health, magicka, and stamina, gain Empower for 10 seconds, or gain Major Force for 10 seconds. And the effect has a 2-second cooldown, so you could theoretically summon a sweet roll every 2 seconds, but since you have to get 3 stacks from light attacks, it's really going to be every 3 seconds, really. Mm-hmm. I tested this out on PTS. It seems like a really good set. So when you touch the sweet roll, it is consumed right away, but the buffs that it gives you persist, and they can be active at the same time. So 3 seconds later, get another sweet roll, get another buff. So as time goes on, you really just have all of them all the time. And so a permanent uptime on Empower and Major Force, I feel like that's incredibly valuable. And the restore, restoring 1593 health, magicka, and stamina, if that happens once every 10 seconds, that's like equivalent to 318 magicka, stamina, and health recovery, which is pretty significant. So that seems actually as goofy and silly as it is. You're summoning these sweet rolls. It's called Grizzly Gourmet. It's like you're getting these stacks of Baker's Delight. It's a goofy theme to set, but it's actually very powerful, I think.
I can see this for when I first read this, I see this as being a great option for a werewolf. And like you said, I think it's good for a lot of builds, but to me, it just seems really great on a werewolf type of build.
I could see that. And then you can maybe actually take advantage of that 2-second cooldown as well. It seems like something actually I think this is actually going to be a really popular, really widely used set. I mean, just the theme of it is going to make it really popular, and the fact that it actually seems to be pretty good. Dr. Professor's asking what the RNG is on the buffs. I was not able to really figure that out. I don't know if it cycles through them in the same order every time, or if it's just totally random each time. I'm not sure. But even if it's just totally random, I think on average you're going to have pretty close to 100% uptime on that Empower and Major Force. I mean, if every 3 seconds you have another chance to refresh that duration, I think you're going to have a really good uptime on those either way.
And this is really cool too, because obviously it's great if you're giving yourself all those buffs, but you can give it can be a kind of a team buff set as well.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's like kind of a way of supporting your team, but probably it would be worn by a DPS. Yeah, I would think. Because it gives those buffs to the wearer, which those buffs wouldn't be very useful on a healer.
Yeah, exactly.
Dr. Professor says he loves the idea of a giant sweet roll just floating there in the middle of the battle. Yeah, it just pops up on the ground right next to whoever you're fighting, and it's just sitting there, and it's a pretty good size. I mean, you definitely see it. It's like shiny, and you see it for sure. So it's cool. I think there's that Baker's costume, and you can get that Cadwell's arms pack where you have like rolling pins and spatulas and all that stuff. You could really role play this thing all the way if you want to.
You gotta, if you're going that, you gotta throw this on with the Cold Harbor's favorite set and just really go full
Cadwell mode.
What me and you like to call the yakety yak type of build.
Yeah. Play the yakety sax song.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to take just a moment and let my dog out to pee because she's a little puppy and her little bladder just can't wait that long.
It's about to burst. Grizzly, you linked that Blood Moon set. That Blood Moon set with this set on a werewolf to me just seems that's a nasty combo right there. You're just going to be, making your light attacks faster, getting the stacks faster.
It would make extra good use out of that permanent Empower as well. 40% extra damage on your light attacks for a werewolf. Oh, yeah. Yep. So keep an eye out for that one. We're going to be seeing sweet rolls all over the place. It's going to be hilarious and awesome. I can't wait. The heavy armor set is called Silver Rose Vigil. It gives you max stamina, max health, max stamina. The 5-piece... blocking an attack grants you a stack of Realm Shaper for 15 seconds. When you reach 3 stacks, you consume them and launch necrotic energy at your attacker, dealing magic damage and applying Major Maim for 12 seconds. And then once you fire the necrotic energy, then a 12-second cooldown begins at that time. And the damage scales off of your max health. So block an attack, you gain this Realm Shaker stack for 15 seconds. Once you get 3 stacks, you block 3 attacks, get 3 stacks, and then it launches this energy thing at them and gives them Major Maim, reduces their damage done by 10% for 12 seconds. I think this is probably going to be a very popular dueling set. I think that's going to be the primary application for this set.
I could see it being that. I could see this being a pretty good PvE tank set.
Yeah. I could see that too if Major Maim isn't already present. I'm not sure how common that debuff is in groups. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, I think the part to me that stands out to see why I could see it on PvE tanks is it's, and it just depends on the group you have, but it could create an option where, I mean, depending on what the damage is, but the fact that the damage scales off max health, that could create an opportunity where you have some tanks with some pretty crazy max health that maybe they could really help out DPS quite a bit.
I could certainly see that. I think I'm seeing this being used in PvP probably primarily, particularly in duels. Like in dueling guilds where like everyone is really, really good at dueling, things get distilled down into the meta very, very quickly, and it's all just a numbers game. Like if you have 2 people facing off and they're of equal skill and everything else, it's really just a matter of how many buffs and debuffs do I have versus how many buffs and debuffs do you have, and what are the uptimes. And that's, you can basically just do a mathematical equation to figure out who's going to win that duel a lot of the time. Having a really, really high uptime on Major Maim, like if you have Major Maim on you and your attacker doesn't, in a duel like that, you probably are going to lose. Just having that 10%, disadvantage, you're probably just going to lose. So I think I don't think Major Maim is that easy to come by with that kind of really high uptime like that. So I'm thinking like in dueling tournaments, this is either going to be mandatory or banned. Probably banned.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's 100% uptime on Major Maim.
Well, you'd have to regain those stacks. So it lasts 12 seconds.
That's true.
So there'll be some downtime, but it'll be real easy to get it back. You go on defense for a few seconds and then you're good. So probably popular in dueling. Probably I'm sure we'll see people use it in like all kinds of PvP modes, but that'll probably be the place where it's really popular until it gets banned. Like half the things in this game are banned in dueling tournaments. The monster set is called Prior Theeric. It gives you 129 weapon and spell damage, and then the two-piece bonus, dealing direct damage with an AoE ability, creates a 6-meter shadowy whirlwind below your enemy for 7 seconds. Enemies within the whirlwind take physical damage each second, and increases their damage taken from your AoE abilities by 5%. And it has a 15-second cooldown. So 7-second uptime, 15-second cooldown. So I tested this. If you're wondering, the whirlwind shows it below your enemy, and it stays on the ground. So your enemy can move out of it if they want to. So it's probably mostly going to be useful in PvE, probably on a Stamplar. It's going to be...
Yeah, or just a Templar, right? Because, it's weapon and spell damage.
Oh, yeah. I think the reason I say Stamina Templar specifically is because it deals physical damage. So it's a stamina damage type.
True.
So like your CP and everything will go with that. I don't see that being extremely popular unless they kind of tweak some of those uptimes and stuff. It seems like a pretty low downtime. Well, who knows? If it's pretty good damage, it may be worth it. 5%. I wonder if they'll raise that to like 8% or something.
Yeah, get a little more punch out of it.
Yeah. Long way to go before it goes live. So that's all the new sets. So we'll move on and talk about some of the changes happening just in the base game.
Whoa! I feel like we gotta talk about what's your favorite named set.
Favorite name? Let me look through them all here. So we had Scorian's Feast, Rush of Agony, Crimson Oath's Rive, Magma Incarnate, Thundercaller. Oh, it's Grizzly Gourmet.
Yeah,
that's the best
I knew
one.
The answer, but I had to double check. I mean, I knew what it was, but maybe
Grizzly Gourmet in honor of GrizzlyCon.
It's got to be the favorite. It's got to be. The most odd one to me is the prior Theeric monster mask, but surely that's just named straight after somebody, right?
Yeah, I gotta imagine once we do these dungeons, we'll know exactly what that name's all about. But it does sound weird, and it does not roll off the tongue at all. As far as that's a cool day. As far as one that I'm most looking forward to, probably that Crimson Oaths Rive, that heavy armor set that reduces everyone's armor.
Yeah, that's the one that it's gonna end up right on your macro.
Yeah,
I feel like that's gonna be really awesome. That's gonna be good.
Okay, so that's all the new dungeon sets. Bunch of base game changes, a whole bunch of base game changes happening. So whether you buy this DLC or not, everything from here on out will apply to you anyway. So one thing, non-CP Cyrodiil campaigns will now be no proc Cyrodiil campaigns, in addition to being no CP. So it's no CP and no proc Cyrodiil campaigns. The CP enabled campaigns, you can use proc sets there, but if you go to the no CP, there's no procs. They updated the list of sets that will work and will not work. They've kind of reclassified a bunch of them, so a lot of sets that didn't work during the no proc test, some of them actually will work for this. So you might take a look at the notes and check that out if you're curious about that. Volendrung, the hammer, will also be disabled in no CP / no proc Cyrodiil. And there's no mention of this being a test. They just say this is what we're doing when this update goes live. They don't say that it's a test. They don't say that it's for a limited period of time or anything like that. It's just happening.
Here's the thing. I love this idea because there were so many people that loved the no proc Cyrodiil and Imperial City. So I love the idea that they're like, all right, you loved it, here's your new home. And they're dispersing the traffic, and the amount of people that are in the, that's the word I'm looking for, the population in these campaigns. They're kind of dispersing that out. If you liked the no proc, you're going to go here. Here's the problem, though. Anybody that's gone into these, the reason why the no CPs pop is so low is because the NPCs are a disaster to deal with if you don't have CP. They're a nightmare to deal with. And while this is great and it creates a lot of fun, that problem still is going to persist.
Yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned it's Imperial City as well. No CP, Cyrodiil, and Imperial City will be no proc. And you're totally right. In particular, in Imperial City, it can be a slog. But in Cyrodiil, too, like you go try to take a resource, those guards are tough if you don't have champion points.
Yeah, and then in Imperial City, you try to take out a banner boss with no CP, man.
Oh, yeah, that's maybe one of the hardest things to do in the game is go do like a middle fight in the middle of the sewers or something in no CP. It's tough.
Yep.
So that's cool. I like that they're trying this. I think they might have to tweak it around a little bit, but I think just about unanimously, right? Like the Cyrodiil players were really enjoying the no proc situation. So I like that they listen to that. They're trying to cater to those players somewhat. They're at least trying. We'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, I like I said, I love the idea. They just need to nerf those NPCs. They got to give them those no CP NPCs a nerf.
Yeah, rebalance those dudes for no CP. So I know we just got done talking about a bunch of new armor sets, but there are some more new armor sets added to the base game. These are sets that you can get from rewards from the Worthy. 3 new rewards for the Worthy sets.
Yeah, this is big time. We need more of this. I mean, this is kind of reminds me of the new monster sets in Imperial City that they just kind of announced.
Yeah,
it's kind of that same idea. They're giving some extra love for PvP players right now. Now, the one thing I'll say is that they're throwing some PvP players love. Now we need those new battleground maps. That's the next thing they got to throw our way.
Yeah, that would be nice, and maybe some new game modes too.
Oh yeah.
These sets, I think all 3 of these are really good. The first one is a light armor set called Dark Convergence. It gives you max magicka, offensive penetration, weapon and spell damage. And then the 5-piece, casting abilities that leave an effect on the ground will create an area that applies a 30% snare, pulls enemies every 2 seconds, and stuns them for 1 second. Then, after 4 seconds, the area deals magic damage to all enemies in the area, and additional damage to enemies within 3 meters of the center, and the damage is increased by 10% for each target that it hits. 20-second cooldown. So
there's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, the devs say basically the point of this set is to be a Zerg buster. Like they just want it to be used for killing large groups of players. That's the point of it.
It's interesting to me that that'll be kind of a theme with these sets going forward, but that they're targeting the Zerg buster theme so much that they're really wanting these single player grenades to go off in the middle of these Zergs that are forming up.
Yeah, like more bombing options.
Yeah.
And I know it's something that like Cyrodiil players are often asking for, like solutions for dealing with Zergs and stuff. So it seems cool. I did test this out. The when it procs the visual effect, I'll tell you exactly what the visual effect is. It's the Templar's Nova Ultimate. Okay. It's that exact animation, but it's purple instead of yellow, and they've kind of changed the particle effects a little bit. It looks really cool, but it's exactly that animation, just changed.
Hey, I'll take that. That's a really cool animation. That and the fact seeing a purple, that sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's not like just purple. It's also like they've definitely like tweaked it, and it looks really neat. So when it's a weird one to kind of understand when you're reading the description here. So that 30% snare, of course, it applies to everyone right away if they're standing in that AoE. It pulls enemies every 2 seconds, but it does respect CC immunity rules. So it pulls you once, you're CC immune now. It's not going to just keep pulling you over and over again. You do get stunned after that pull. It's like pull, then you're stunned, but it's a 1 second stun. It really feels more like a stagger than a stun. Like you don't even have time to try to break free because you're already free from it by the time you even try.
Yeah, I mean, it seems exactly. I mean, there's a lot going on, but it does seem exactly kind of what they said. It's kind of the Zerg buster. It holds you there for just a split second, but that increasing the damage by 10% for each target. You throw that in a big group, and they're all kind of forced to stay there for just a little bit to have that hit them. 10% for each target. That can be massive.
Yeah, the damage hits after a 4-second delay, but like let's say you get pulled and then you get stunned for a second, so now you have 2 seconds to get out of there before the damage happens. I think that seems fair. That seems fair to me.
Yeah, I mean, certain people are going to be able to get out probably on the edges, but a lot of people, 2 seconds is not a lot of reaction times to completely disengage from a fight and just start bailing. It can happen, but it's going to hit a lot of people.
The medium armor set is kind of a similar idea. It's called Plague Break. You get offensive penetration and 2 lines of weapon and spell damage. And then the 5-piece, dealing direct damage to an enemy, turns them into a plague carrier for 10 seconds. And that deals disease damage over the duration. So it's like a dot that you put on them. Now, if the plague is removed early, if they cleanse it, then it explodes, damaging enemies within an 8-meter radius. And the explosion deals additional 10% damage per enemy hit. And has a 10-second cooldown. So similar kind of idea to the first one, except this one is sticky. It sticks to a player, and if they try to cleanse it, or if someone cleanses it off of them for them, which can happen, then it sets off this bomb.
This one to me seems even better.
This one's like a psychological game,
Yeah.
Like
don't
on my
cleanse.
Templar, I never think twice about cleansing. Oh, I got something on me, cleanse. Just don't even think about it.
And for your teammates, let me cleanse that for you. Just let me. You're just constantly. Or think about how much of a disaster this is for a warden. They're getting auto cleansed.
They're getting auto cleansed. There's nothing they can do about it. You're right about that.
You have a warden in the group. This thing, you hate the warden in your group if an opponent has this.
I didn't even think about wardens. They can't stop it from getting cleansed.
There's nothing you can do. So I like this one. I think this one's even better as a Zerg Buster than the last one. I think they're both good, and I think they'll both be used for exactly that design. But this one seems even scarier. The other thing about this one is, again, 2-piece offensive penetration.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really nice. The kind of, if you're looking for extra penetration, it adds some more kind of diversity in order to have a couple pieces just to get that extra offensive penetration.
Yeah, even the 2, 3, and 4-piece bonus is just a bunch of offensive stats. If you just want that, and maybe instead of the 5-piece, you just do Malakath, and that's your 5-piece setup.
It's great.
That wouldn't be bad setup at all.
Yep.
Yeah. So 2 cool sets in a row, and then this one here. This one's actually the one that everyone's hype about.
I love the name of this one too. I understand that it's named after like frost damage, but it's just cool.
They knew what they were doing. It's called Hrothgar's Chill. It's a heavy armor set. This is the one that I'm really excited about, and it's the one that like people are talking about the most by far, I would say, as far as what I'm seeing online. Heavy armor set, it gives you a line of maximum health, a line of armor, and then a line of offensive penetration. The 5-piece bonus, stunning or immobilizing an enemy, applies the chilled status effect and deals 26% of their total physical and spell resistance as frost damage in an 8-meter radius. And it has a 7-second cooldown. So 26% of their total physical and spell resistance. That means you take their physical resistance and you take their spell resistance, you add them together, and that combined total, you're gonna deal 26% of that as damage. So for example, if they have 25k resistance, physical resistance, and 25k spell resistance, that totals to 50k total resistance points, which means this thing is gonna hit for 13,000 damage. Of course, they'll mitigate that with their armor and stuff, but tooltip wise, that'll be 13,000 damage against that target.
But the unique part about that is the more, armor would do it, but the tanky they are, the more damage it's going to deal.
Yeah, exactly. It's also nice too because it's a proc, but it's not based on your offensive stats. It's based on your enemy's stats. So you can kind of cheese that. You don't necessarily have to have really amazing stats to get a lot out of this set here. Plus, just automatically applying the chilled status effect very easily. It has a really low cooldown, 7 seconds. Every 7 seconds, this thing can proc for potentially a lot of damage. There's a lot of people hype about this. A lot of people are really looking forward to Frost Mage builds, and we'll talk about some other stuff that is really, really going to enable those kinds of builds. Get a little something in my throat. There's fucking another fly. Jesus Christ. I haven't seen flies in my house until today, and now there's like 1,000 of them.
That's what's happening is you swallowed one. It's taking your voice out. They're just everywhere.
Easy to proc, stunning or immobilizing an enemy. So if you're a warden, you have Arctic Blast. That's just automatically stunning everyone around you all the time. So this is just getting procced automatically all the time. Dr. Professor Scrollin, the Fly Saga. Yeah. We could seriously just cut out everything except me dealing with the fly and probably have a 2-hour-long podcast.
Just you killing flies.
So no brainer combine this with the Frostbite set, right? It's automatically given players the chilled status effect, which means Frostbite is going to be doing 4% additional damage to them. If you're holding a Frost Staff, they're also automatically going to be getting Minor Brittle, so you're going to be getting the extra 2% damage against them as well. So they obviously synergize very perfectly. I think that was 100% intentional on the developer's part.
Yeah. What's interesting about this set to me is that it's fantastic for in a PvP sense. It's fantastic for taking out the permablock builds, that are just constantly, you can't kill them. They're just constantly holding block. But at the same time, it's great for a permablock build. It's like, true. Wait a minute, it kills those builds, but it's exactly the best set for those builds. It's such a wild idea on that for me. It's like this is exactly the set they want because they don't need weapon and spell damage because it's depending on the permablock build. It's kind of a wild setup there.
So I think this is the other set that's going to go in my Magcro.
Yeah.
So that one that we were talking about before that reduces people's resistance, and then this one here. A Magcro uses a Frost Staff with Wall of Frost, so that immobilizes people constantly. Plus, I have the Remote Totem, and that's stun. That counts as a stun. So real easily, I'm going to be proccing this thing left and right. But I'm not going to do Frostbite paired with that. I'm going to do that whatever that other set was called that reduces people's resistance.
Gonna have a heavy armor build.
I'm going to have a heavy armor build, I think. And I've already kind of pieced it together in the build editor. I think I can get it where the stats look the way I like them to look. And I think it's going to be a really good build, actually.
Nice. I love this this new frost damage we're seeing. My favorite set in the game, or favorite named set, I should say, is the Ysgramor set.
Ysgramor's Birthright.
Ysgramor's Birthright. I think it's the one that gives frost damage. I think it gives 600 frost damage. I don't think
it's 600.
Oh my gosh, it's 400.
It's 400. Yeah.
The disrespect to Ysgramor. It's still 400. How could this set not get the 600 bucks?
It's consistent with the other elemental ones. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the one that's like. I think it's called Netch that gives lightning damage. I think it's 400, and the fire one, I forget its name right now, but I think it's also 400.
The disrespect that they throw for Ysgramor, unbelievable.
So Frost Mages incoming. That's gonna. We're calling it right now. That's gonna be the new hotness. People in guild chat were predicting that. When we were approaching this last chapter, when Frostbite was going to be coming out, everyone was saying that was going to happen then, but it didn't really happen. I think it really is going to happen now. And we're not done talking about Frost Mage stuff. There's going to be some more stuff coming up here in just a little bit that'll really bring it all together with the Destro staff.
Yep, for sure.
Dr. Professor asked, is Rewards for the Worthy the only place for those sets? That is true, yeah. Those three that we just talked about just come from Rewards for the Worthy, which means they're bind on equip, so you can buy them from guild traders. So they'll probably be really expensive at first because they're all three great sets, so I think they're going to sell really well. But after a few months, you know how it is with Rewards for the Worthy. You have piles and piles of this stuff after a while. So they'll be real easy to get a hold of after a couple of months, I think.
Yeah, and I think even the really sought after ones will be not terribly insane.
Oh yeah, like look at Deadly Strikes. That's an incredibly popular PvP set, and it's not terribly expensive to put that set together at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So some great sets there. I'm looking forward to those. Some updates to combat and abilities. They've updated Break Free. They say that it should improve response time to breaking free from CC. That sounds awesome because I frequently experience frustration with that.
I just want Break Free to work when I use it. That's what I'm looking for.
That'd be ideal. If it worked, that would be ideal. So hopefully Break Free feels a little better. It's when they made some changes around block several patches ago, and ever since they updated how block works, Break Free just does not work right. Battle Spirit will now reduce players' damage taken by 55% instead of 44%. And remember, we still have the 10% base mitigation on top of that. So we'll be a little bit tankier in PvP. Everyone will be. The dev comment says they basically just want to increase time to kill. They want it to take longer to kill people.
I think we're on different sides of this. I think initially I'm a fan of this. You'll have to ask me again next episode, but I think initially I'm a fan of this. I usually play a little bit tankier style, so this seems to be my kind of right up my alley. But I can understand based on your playstyle while you're not crazy about this.
My knee-jerk reaction anytime we're talking about increasing time to kill, I'm just like, no, we can't do that. There might be perfectly great reasons why we need to, but it's like my instinct is like, no, I want fast pace. I want people to die quick, and people do die quick, myself included. People die quick right now, but that's the play style I like, man. Like run and gun. It's fun. I think non-CP environments are going to feel this the most, I think. Because we're not going to have champion points to add extra juice to our combos and stuff like that. Dr. Professor put the Michael Scott no meme in the Discord. Perfectly fitting. It'll probably be fine, right?
I think it's gonna be good.
David says it's gonna be great. Ket's a little reluctant, but I mean, I'll be tankier too, so fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
It's all fine.
But I mean, think about that though. Like, there's a popular defensive set called Buffer of the Swift. It gives you 10% damage mitigation against players. So this is just free Buffer of the Swift that everyone has now.
I think
So
here's a good example of why I'm excited about this. You know, I've talked about this. My favorite character to play right now is my Stam DK. And I've frequently talked about his struggle right now is that he constantly gets caught up in a struggle of where he doesn't have a lot of range, and there's a lot of popular range right now where and in high MMR matches you're just kind of standing there. If you dive in, you get swarmed, and so you kind of have to hold back, and while you're holding back, he's just kind of getting hit. So the fact that he's a little bit tankier and I can stand there and not and when I'm forced to be that target dummy, can stand there and not just instantly get melted right at the start of a match. That's what initially comes to my mind why I'm a little bit more excited. He has a little bit more time to get to these ranged players now.
The following, so this is what I was mentioning kind of back at the beginning. The following passives and player abilities now grant hybrid stats. The medium armor agility passive will now give equal weapon and spell damage, not just weapon damage. The medium armor dexterity passive, they changed it. It now gives critical damage and critical healing done per piece of medium armor rather than weapon critical strike chance. So that's kind of a significant change. It's no longer critical strike chance, it's critical damage and healing done, and it's for both stamina and magicka.
Yeah. How about the continued focus on diversity builds right here?
Oh yeah, they're really heeding the call of players who want to play more and more hybrid builds.
Yeah. I think it's a step in the right direction. I love it personally.
And they're doing it in smart ways where nothing's becoming overpowered, or anything like that. It's just making more options available to people, and I really, really like it. And even, I mean, we've said several times, even just since Flames of Ambition, just since that patch, there's been so many cool hybrid builds possible, and we're just going further and further down that path. Happy to see it. Templar Balanced Warrior passive now gives just armor, like armor of both types rather than just spell resistance, but it's half the value. And it also gives weapon and spell damage rather than just weapon damage, and the full values of those.
You have to like this, right? It's going to give your Magplar a little bit more bite, and you're already kind of loving your Magplar right now.
Oh yeah, my Magplar is going to get a little more bite in a couple of ways. That right there, plus some changes happening to Destro staff. He's going to be hitting a bit harder, which everyone's getting more resistance, so maybe he's not going to be hitting harder. But anyway, Werewolf, the Brutal Pounce active ability will now give weapon and spell damage. The Savage Strength passive now gives weapon and spell damage. The Light Armor Concentration passive will now give offensive penetration of both types. That's kind of a big deal. That's something that stamina builds lack, is penetration. That's something that Magicka builds always kind of have over them. So a way to get more offensive penetration on a stamina build, and now it's in a situation where it's not totally crazy to think about putting multiple light armor pieces on a stamina build.
Yeah, I actually am a fan of this because I like the idea of going more away from the 5 piece of one type of armor, the 5-1, the 5-1-1 or whatnot. Yeah. I like going away from that split where it's a 3-3, a 3-3-1 or
The big thing that'll, I think, be a factor is sustain, because light armor still only helps you with Magicka sustain. Medium armor still only helps you with stamina sustain. So I think figuring out what kind of sustain you're going to need is going to play a big factor in what weight types you're going to use. But I think that's really the main factor, though. Like everything else, it's kind of like, well, if I want more crit chance, I need more light armor. If I want more crit damage, I need more medium armor. There's those kinds of decisions are coming into play now.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point. In a way, it kind of makes those sustained stats gain a little bit more value.
Let's see. The light armor passive Prodigy now gives critical strike chance for both types. The Flawless Dawnbreaker Ultimate, the bonus when you cast that ability now gives weapon and spell damage instead of just weapon damage. The Fighters Guild Slayer passive now gives weapon and spell damage. The DK Scaled Armor passive gives flat armor rather than just spell resistance, but it's, again, half the value. So there you go. A lot more hybrid stuff coming our way.
I got to go back to these werewolf changes. I mean, are we going to see a magical werewolf build now? Is this where we're at?
Maybe. Why not?
I just feel
it's
like
actually kind of terrifying.
It is a little terrifying. Vampire is so broken and so bad.
Broken in a bad way.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say broken, they mean it's like
That's
overpowered.
True. Thank you for clarifying that. No, it's bad. It's the real bad. The original version of bad. It's so bad that they have just given werewolf magicka and stamina.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting too that, I mean, forever Fighters Guild has been stamina based and the Mage Guild has been magicka based, and they're just blurring those lines even more, right?
They are, yeah. Dr. Professor's asking if the light attacks from werewolf scale off of max stamina. I'm really not. I bet they do. I bet they scale off of stamina offensive stats. It depends on the type of damage that they do. If it's like physical or bleed damage or something like that, then yeah, it's going to be scaling off your stamina and weapon damage. So that would be something that would maybe not make them like all the way magicka, but definitely gives them reasons to maybe wear more light armor, to invest more in magicka, which means they can heal even more than they already do. Maybe not the worst thing in the world. Werewolves, they could use a little bit of love.
They probably need a little bit of buff.
Just like a tiny bit, the tiniest little bit.
Well, next episode we're gonna be like, nerf werewolves now.
I've seen a couple. This past week I've seen a couple of werewolves that were a real pain to deal with. But that's okay. Once in a while, you should run into them once in a while.
Yeah, that's the perfect place for werewolves to be.
They're making some changes to stealth. Basically, Nightblades are getting buffed, I would say. I think this mostly amounts to a buff. But there are a couple of things that could be considered nerfs here. So they've updated, they've changed kind of how stealth gets broken and what kinds of abilities can break stealth. In the notes, they say the only abilities that should remove stealth are AoE, damage, stuns, fears, or immobilizes. As well as reveals. So that's like Inner Light and Camo Hunter, those kind of abilities. So anything else is not going to bring them out of stealth. So if you're a Nightblade and you're invisible and you run through, say, like a wall of lightning that's on the ground, you'll take that damage, but you'll still be invisible. So that's kind of cool. Also, dots, like sticky dots that are placed on you. If you don't know, the way stealth works right now is when you go invisible, if you have a dot on you, stealth suppresses that dot. That dot does not tick on you as long as you are invisible. So it's kind of like having a cleanse. Well, that's no longer going to be the case. If someone puts a dot on you and you go invisible, that dot will continue to damage you, but it's not going to pull you out of stealth. You can stay invisible. The way it is right now, if you take damage of any kind, you're automatically pulled out of stealth right away. So now it's going to be only AoE direct damage or stuns, fears, and immobilizes. Anything else, you'll take the damage, but you'll stay invisible.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with this. I think I like this change. I feel like you'll have to ask me a couple months from now how annoyed I am by Nightblades and PGs. But I think it's a good thing. I think Nightblades probably need this slight buff.
I think I'm philosophically on board, like just making the stealth mechanic behave consistently where you can kind of predict when and where you're going to have success with it and when you're not. Because right now, like, stealth is kind of buggy, and a lot of times it gets broken and it's not clear why. Like, you feel like I should be invisible right now. So I do like that. I will tell you, the last couple of nights I've done some BGs, and I was getting real sick of Nightblades. We talked a few episodes ago about how Nightblades are in a better spot than they've been in a long time, especially in no CP, especially in Battlegrounds. Stamblades, I mean, in particular.
Oof.
They're doing really well right now, and I think more and more people are kind of catching on to that. And I'm seeing a lot of Nightblades in Battlegrounds these days, good ones, successful ones. And it's frustrating, you know, like if you're up against a team that has 3 stealth blades, like 3 good stealthy Nightblades, it can feel like there's not a lot you can do. It's like you're fighting a pack of wolves or something. They're just getting you from all sides, and you turn to try to face one of them, and another one's getting you in the back. And
oof. There's also nothing worse than when you're in a BG and you're running with your team, and maybe you cast an ability or something, so you fall 5 steps behind, and then you get ganked, and it's actually a successful gank, and it's
yeah. So Nightblades, I think, are buffed a bit just because they'll have an easier time staying invisible. The one nerf there is that dots are no longer getting suppressed, so they will continue to take that damage. I think that's seems fair. It seems good. We'll see how it goes. I don't like buffing Nightblades, and I don't like buffing Sorks. I'll tell you that. Just in general.
Yeah. Those are the annoying BG classes. I mean,
because they become popular. They're already like so enticing to play anyway.
Exactly. I'm not trying to throw shade, but those are just the 2 annoying BG classes.
They are the most annoying ones.
So the fact that there's going to be a lot more of those, it does cause me some concern.
Not looking forward to it. So that's stealth. There's a bunch of other ability changes. I'll skip most of them. A lot of it's just kind of fixes and stuff like that. I'm just going to pick out the interesting one. The most interesting one to me for Templars is the Backlash ability, aka Power of the Light or Purifying Light. It's the Templar's main burst ability. So the way that ability works is you tag an enemy with it. It lasts for 6 seconds. And then you do as much damage as you can during that 6 seconds, and then Power of the Light explodes and deals 20% of the damage that you dealt during that 6-second period. Now it's going to be 50% of the damage that you dealt. So a major buff to that ability.
That's big time.
The devs said they just want this to be stronger in PvP, and I think that is deserved. I use this ability, but there are a lot of Templars that straight don't even bother slotting this on their PvP setups because the amount of burst that it delivers compared to, say, like a Sub-Assault or a Blast Bones or like a Nightblade's Merciless Resolve, it's nowhere near those abilities. Yeah. So now it's going to be closer to that ballpark, and I think that's going to be really good.
Listeners didn't think it was possible for Ket to play more Templar, but guess what?
It's happening. It's happening, people. That'll be nice, because really Templars, like, their only real damage is just jabs. That's the only real damage that they have.
That is almost all of their damage is their jabs. Or in an ultimate, you can have an ultimate on there to get some damage.
Yeah, but like the classes I feel like that are the most successful, like getting those kills over and over and over again, are the ones that have that delayed burst to like line stuff up with. And Templars have it too, but it's just been kind of weak until now. So that'll be cool. I think 50% seems good. And that's a major PvE buff for Templars, I would think. The Radiant Oppression ability, aka Jesus Beam. So the execute no longer scales with your current max magicka. It now just has a straight 500% execute multiplier just as your target loses health. It just works like a normal execute now. That seems like a lot.
I've always liked this ability. I just think it's cool looking, but I haven't used it in BGs because it kind of we're not crazy about casting abilities.
Like channel time abilities.
Abilities on the old Scrolling podcast, but this has sold it for me. I'm interested to ask you to see if this is going to convince you to use it, but I will probably end up throwing this on my Magplar now. I'm curious to see if it's enough to convince you.
I I don't think so. I don't think I can make the bar space for it. I can't think of it what I would be willing to get rid of to slot it.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. It's a really good ability. I mean, for the amount of battlegrounds we do, I know you can say the same thing as me. There's a lot of times if this is getting thrown out there, if there's a player that's using this is usually the reason that what's gonna be the thing that kills you.
Yeah, I like to see Soul Assault builds, and I'm pretty sure there is a set that buffs specifically channel time abilities.
Yep.
But just blast someone with the Soul Assault ultimate, and then when they get into execute range, Jesus beam them. So it's just one beam, then another beam, then they're dead. That could be fun.
The beam build.
Yeah. The devs say that should have about the same power potential as it had before, but it's just going to be a lot easier to use. Destro staff. So flame and lightning staves are now going to give 10% bonus damage to their respective damage types, rather than 8%. So flame staffs will now give 10% extra single target damage. Lightning staffs will now give 10% extra AoE damage. So that's that other buff to my Magplar I was talking about earlier. Lightning stabs, he's going to get 2% more damage. That'll be nice.
Yep.
They say that they did that to better match the dual wield and two-hander passives to kind of make those closer to each other damage-wise. The destructive touch ability is now guaranteed to apply the status effect, whichever type you're using, whenever it hits a target. That's pretty cool. The Frost version of this ability now deals 80% more damage on its initial hit. And they say they do that to make it equal to other ranged spammables.
80%.
So that's kind of weird because it's like they don't balance this ability as a spammable. It's a different category of ability. But if you have a frost staff equipped, this is a spammable now. And it's balanced like other spammables. It seems like a strange move since there already is a spammable ability in the Destro staff skill line.
Yeah.
But they're really trying to make pure frost builds possible. And
they're making it a thing for sure.
And the Destro staff spammable Force Pulse, it deals frost, shock, and fire damage. So if you really are trying to be truly a pure frost mage, that's dealing other damage types, so you need something else. So I think that's all it is. They just want a truly pure frost mage to be possible, and this is how they can do it. Let's see, the destructive clench morph, they say that's still going to be tank focused rather than DPS focused, and they reduce the cost, and now it applies major maim. That's pretty incredible. Like, you can just spam this ability to give someone permanent major maim. So we were talking about a set that does that earlier, but if you can just do this by casting an ability at them...
Yeah. Because it's a guaranteed status effect, right?
Yeah, and you straight up just reduce their damage right away. So
That's
that might be
wild.
an ability that I try to kind of find room for on my macro as well. Just more debuffs.
Yep. I mean, you could throw that into our team.
That's interesting. It's interesting that just the Frost version of this ability is so different from the other versions, just depending on what kind of staff you have equipped.
It's kind of interesting to me to see a Frost version of an ability be so much better than the other versions of the ability. Because I feel like Frost versions of Destro staff abilities aren't that way, but this one is.
Yeah, well, it's like it serves a different function, like the other two abilities.
It's almost like
are
a different ability.
It is. It's a spammable. It's balanced as a spammable. The other two are not. The other two are like utility abilities. It's like the fire one's a stun. That's how you stun people. The shock one gives you AoE damage. So it's interesting, but I'm not complaining about it. I mean, I think it was a very underused ability for frost builds. So I don't think anyone's going to be like complaining about it. And then the actual Destro staff spammable Force Shock and its morphs, like Force Pulse, they can now be reflected. They couldn't before, apparently. Dual wield, the Flurry spammable, the Bloodthirst morph specifically, it now heals for 33% of the damage done per hit, rather than 63% of the final hit. So they say that's overall going to be slightly more healing and more responsive healing. That seems like a pretty good change there.
Yeah, it's kind of even more so the poor man's Magplar jabs for stamina character, right?
Yeah, kind of. And you could put on that Sword Dancer set that buffs your dual wield abilities, and you could put on Deadly Strikes that buffs your channel time abilities by 20%. Use this ability here. It's going to hit for a whole lot of damage and also heal you for a lot. And if you happen to be, say, a stamina sorcerer using critical charge, you're going to be healing off of those crits as well. So that could be a really good situation.
Yeah.
Ring of the Pale Order, if you throw that into the mix as well, Grizzly Khan says, absolutely. That's just all of the healing based on damage. That could be nice.
That's a solo BGQ build if I've ever heard of one.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because you'll be in a group in Pale Order. You know how that works with groups now.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about the changes on that.
That'd be strictly a solo PvE build in that case if Pale Order's in there.
I forgot about
I know. Sad.
Gosh.
Sad. Fighters Guild, the skilled tracker passive now increases your damage with Fighters Guild abilities by 10%, and then an additional 10% against player werewolves and vampires. The way it is right now on live, it's just a flat 20% against any undead, Daedra, or werewolf, whether it's a player or an NPC. But it doesn't do anything against someone who isn't an undead, Daedra, or werewolf. So now, it's better now. You get 10% against everyone, and then an extra 10% against player, werewolves, and vampires. So you still get that 20% bonus, basically against those the exact same people you got it against before in PvP. Right?
Yeah, some PvP love here. Better for PvP. I bet there's some PvE players that might be a little mad about this.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it probably you come out ahead in PvE, because in PvE, I mean, there are a lot of undead and Daedra that you come across, but there's a lot of NPCs that are not those things, So
That's
now
true.
you at least have 10% against everything all the time.
That's true. Maybe it evens out.
That seems good to me. This one's a big deal. The Psijic Order, the Deliberation passive, it no longer grants major protection. You remember major protection was nerfed big time. It used to be like a 30% damage reduction. Now it's a 10% damage reduction. So no longer grants major protection. Instead, now it applies a unique 30% damage reduction. They say they do that to get this passive's power back to where it was meant to be. So now it has the value of the old major protection, but it's unique. So you can stack it with major, minor protection, everything else. That's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah. Some real Davius Magplar love here.
You're going to get some use out of that.
Got to throw a shout out to that dev that is always paying attention to the Davius Magplar build. He's always throwing me some love.
Reminder of what that passive does. Whenever you're channeling a Psijic Order ability, you get that resistance buff. So yeah, you use a couple actually. You have Meditate. Yep. So whenever you're using Meditate, you'll have 30% damage reduction. And then you have that, what's it called? The healing light and heavy attacks.
That's
Mend
a great
wounds.
Question. Mend wounds, thank you.
Yeah, mend wounds. If you're doing a heavy attack with the mend wounds thing, because it turns your heavy and light attacks into heals, then during that heavy attack, 30% damage reduction. That's pretty nice. That's already a tanky character.
Yeah, that's a big buff for the Davius build for sure.
And you used to see it all the time. People would get in that Meditate and just sit there while people are just banging on them. And they're restoring all these resources and just not dying. And you don't really see that a lot anymore, but I think we'll start seeing it again.
Yep.
Which I actually kind of think that's cool. Like, looks so cool, like hovering there in that bubble, people trying to kill you and you're just not dying and you're restoring your resources and you jump back in the fight.
To me, that will always be the coolest looking ability in the game.
Oh, yeah. And that's, I've seen some people that will do that as their, like, victory pose if they beat you. Like, instead of teabagging you, they'll just do that for a second. And that's cool.
Next level right there.
Yeah. I think that's cool. So that's great. The crushing weapon spammable, that's the stamina morph. Now it no longer gives you 25% healing based off of the damage. It gives you now instead it gives your target major breach whenever you hit them for 6 seconds. I would say in PvE that's a pretty big nerf because in PvE the target already has major breach probably from the tank, so that's a waste. But in PvP, I don't know. It's do you value the major breach or do you value the 20% healing off of damage? I think that healing in PvP is probably like negligible. I would say. So I think probably that's a good thing for PvP. Bad for PvE, good for PvP. So that's kind of all the abilities that I wanted to touch on. They changed some others, like I said, a lot of fixes and some minor refinements. Those are the ones that kind of stood out. For champion points, we got 3 new sub-constellations. I'm not going to get into all the details of these. I'm just going to kind of mention them really quick. One thing I want to mention is that all these new stars are slottable, which is a little bit of a bummer, I think, because it's like we only have 4 slots, and I have like so many stars unlocked that I can't use because I can only use 4 at a time. So it's neat. Like these are neat, and there's a lot of flavor with these, but there's a lot of like really kind of core stars that I feel like I have to use that I think I'm maybe not going to be willing to give those up in order to use these new ones here. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you on this. And, we said this last time they kind of added these new slottable abilities. A really cool idea, really like the flavor with them, but it doesn't seem viable to take off the stat buff slottables. I think right now everybody's using these max stat buff slottables that are just straight giving max stats, and it just doesn't seem viable to take those off for these types of slottables. I almost wish that they would make the max stat abilities just passive, and then all of these type abilities, the slottable ones to choose from, and at least that way we're choosing between which one of these that we want to slot or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that sounds good. We definitely need more passive stars that we can use, and I think that makes good sense. All the kind of just basic stat based ones, just making all of those, which a lot of those are. There are some passive ones that are like that, but we need more of them. So these new sub-constellations, the first one's called a Wind Chaser. They say that that's focused on movement. So you'll get like extra movement speed, major expedition after you kill something, health and magic or recovery while you're sprinting, that kind of stuff. The other one's called Survivor's Spite. They say this one is focused on pushing back, is their wording. So it's stuff like whenever you have a negative effect, you can increase your recovery or decrease the amount of damage that you take per negative effect that you have. Or you can get like major protection after breaking CC. So it's all about kind of reacting after you get attacked.
Yeah, you're kind of getting back to the corner, and this is allow you to push your way out of that corner.
Yeah, exactly. And then the third constellation is called Walking Fortress. So it's just about being a tank, right? Blocking and shields is what this is all about. So just like increasing your block mitigation, but reducing your speed is what one of the stars can do. You can restore health while blocking, and there's one that reduces damage taken while blocking with a damage shield active. So just all about tanking there. Really not much else to say about the champion point stuff, right? Like, yeah, cool, fun. I might play around with some of the Wind Chaser, the mobility focused ones. Some of those could be kind of neat, but like we were saying, I don't know if I'm going to be willing to unslot kind of the core, what I would consider to be like core stars that I'm using right now.
Yeah.
Making some changes to some existing sets. I'm not going to mention all of them because it's actually surprisingly kind of a lengthy list, but most of it is fairly minor stuff. One big one, though, is Pelinal's Aptitude. And this one's kind of interesting because we've been getting so much stuff that's like encouraging us to make hybrid builds. And this has always been the hybrid set to use.
This is the set for hybrid builds.
and they've totally changed it. So let me just read what it is, and then we'll talk about it. So it no longer causes your weapon and spell damage to become the highest of the two values. So like the special thing that this set has always done doesn't do that anymore. Now, whenever you kill an enemy, it grants you a damage shield based on your weapon or spell damage, and it gives you a stack of Wrath of the White Strake for 10 seconds, and you can get 10 stacks max. So what Wrath of the White Strake does is it gives you 100 weapon and spell damage per stack. So you can get 10 stacks, so that'd be 1,000 weapon and spell damage. That's quite a bit. But it also causes you to take 1% of your max health as oblivion damage every second per stack. So if you have 30k health, that's 300 damage per second, right? Is my math right there?
That's per one stack, right? If you have 10 stacks, it'd be 10% of your health. So it'd actually be 3,000. If you have 30k health, it'd be 3,000 health, right? If you have all 10 stacks. Am I doing that right?
So, okay, yeah, you're right. So 3,000 damage per second, that's actually pretty strong, considering that this is oblivion damage. You're not able to mitigate that. You are taking 3,000 damage no matter what. So 1,000 weapon and spell damage, that's the thing though. If you have 1,000 extra weapon and spell damage, like your vigor can probably out heal that dot pretty easily.
Yeah, what's your hot gonna look like with that much extra stuff going on?
Yeah. So you kind of go into this berserker mode, and it like eats away at your health. But I bet a decent player could keep up with that and out heal it and be all right. But 3,000 oblivion damage is a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. Here's my, well, I'll let you talk about 2 through 4 first. Then I'm going to go into my initial crazy thoughts with this new set here.
I have some thoughts too. They changed the 2 through 4 piece bonuses. It's now weapon and spell damage, offensive penetration, and another line of weapon and spell damage. So what do you got, Davies?
So here's my thing. Here's what I feel like I have to try just because it's gonna be super wacky. I've been talking about the Thracian Stranglers mythic of wanting to try that in a PvE setup.
You got to do it.
You got to put it with this. I mean, if you put Thracian Stranglers with this and you get the kills, you get all. Let's say you get all the stacks. It's a lot of stacks.
It's a lot of stacks.
Elder stacks online. You get all your stacks. We're talking about you're getting 2,150 weapon and spell damage, and then you're getting minus 6,000 health, and then you're taking 10% of your health damage per second. But you're talking about a 2,150 weapon and spell damage buff. I mean, I might have to call it the shooting star build. It just burns real bite and then just burns out. But
yeah, maybe you already have 7,000 weapon damage.
Yeah,
like starting out.
A 2,150 weapon and spell damage buff. I just feel like that. I have to give this a shot, and it is, it is very PvE focused. I don't think it's not going to work in PvE because you got to get kills to get those stacks. But I feel like if you can get you go through a dungeon or something and get enough kills to get all those stacks up, there's some real DPS potential here with stacking those two, that set with the Thracian Stranglers.
Yeah, I definitely see some potential there. I want to see it in action. All right,
I've been talking about making this PvE DPS. You've talked me into it. This might be. This is a
craftable set, but I think it's a 9 trait set. Ooh. I'm not sure, but I think it might be.
I don't think I have 9 traits. Uh-oh.
My thing is anyone who's using this set currently is just gonna immediately throw it in the trash as soon as this update goes live, because what they were using it for, it doesn't do that now. It's a totally different thing. So I feel like that's a bummer, man. I don't use it, thankfully, but some people do use this set, and they're just going to wake up one day and it's a completely different set, and they're not going to be able to use it anymore unless they just want to completely reinvent their build entirely.
I think it goes back into what you're saying. I think they're going to continue this change of a lot of things are going to give you weapon and spell damage, and maybe that'll So the people that are using this set are already doing hybrid builds, and maybe this shift towards more flexibility for hybrid builds will allow those hybrid builds to experiment with sets that will give them more, where they're not having to dedicate a 5-piece set to just get the highest of the two values.
Oh, yeah, no question. All in all, we have far more hybrid options than we've ever had. Even if you delete Pelinal out of the game, there's way more options to have effective hybrids than we've had before. So yeah, those players that are playing those hybrid builds and are enjoying them, they'll still be able to do that, but they're just going to have to figure out a new build.
Yeah, they're going to have to make some changes for sure.
So I can understand some people being annoyed by that because it's such a drastic change. But Crusader is another set that's getting changed. This is one that I don't think hardly anyone uses, so I don't think anyone's going to be mad about this one getting changed. It no longer increases the window of your roll dodge. It increases the dodge window when you do a roll dodge by 0.3 seconds or something like that. Now, whenever you deal direct damage with a gap closer, it grants you a damage shield based on your weapon and spell damage for 6 seconds. Again, Pelinal does that as well, right? Was it Pelinal? Yeah. When you kill someone, you get a damage shield and get those stacks.
Damage shields are popular with these changes.
Yeah. So yeah, this one, when you deal direct damage with a gap closer, you get a damage shield based on your weapon and spell damage for 6 seconds, and it creates an AoE beneath you for 10 seconds. The AoE grants group members inside minor courage for 12 seconds, and the duration gets refreshed every 2 seconds, and it has a 20-second cooldown. So 10-second duration, 20-second cooldown for the effect, but that minor courage could potentially last 100% of the time, right? Because that duration is constantly getting refreshed. So that seems pretty good. Minor courage is not the easiest buff to get, so an easy way to give it to everyone like that seems all right.
Yeah, I think it's better. I mean, I think this set's definitely better. I think it's very PvE focused, but I think that, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where maybe in a trial group that this set gets thrown on a character just to get that minor courage buff easily. I think it gives it to a trial group really, really well. I don't think it's, and I'm no expert on PvE, I don't think it's enough to throw on a 4-man dungeon PvE group. I don't think it makes enough sense there. But I could very much see this as if you're trying to put together a perfect, well-oiled machine trial group, and you're trying to get all these buffs, somebody in that group throwing this on there, I think makes a lot of sense. It's an easy way to give everybody minor courage. I think everybody standing in the AoE ability gets it real easily. I could see if you're trying to maximize the buffs for the entire group, I think this makes sense for that purpose. Where before, I don't know anybody who was using this set.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Definitely the chances of someone actually equipping this set are greatly increased with this change here. Whether it's super popular or not, I don't know, but I bet at least someone will use it once in a while. It's completely different. It used to just be totally selfish. It's just about your roll dodge. Now it's a support set, basically.
Yeah.
Celine's monster set, it's no longer coded as a pet. They have weird wording for it, but my deciphering, I think it basically is just no longer considered a pet, which means sets like Necropotence aren't going to buff it. That's all it means. It still, I think, essentially is going to work and function the same way as always. Sithis' touch no longer. This is probably the biggest buff. As far as how much the set sucks to where it is now, probably the biggest buff in the whole patch.
This set should have been untouchable.
What'd they do to my poor Sithis touch? Sithis touch, it no longer grants you major berserk whenever you kill an enemy with the Blade of Woe. Are you kidding me? This set now grants 5% movement speed for 30 seconds whenever you kill an enemy. Stacks up to 20 times, so you can have up to a 100% movement speed increase. And then it grants you invisibility for 3 seconds when you kill someone. That's a lot more useful. Again, I don't think it's going to be the most popular set in the world, but certainly an improvement over the current version.
I'm pretty sure that this set went from a 0%, maybe a 0.1% equipped to, I think a lot of people are going to use this set now. I personally will get a set of this. This is going to be what I use for resource gathering on characters.
Oh, really?
It just seems perfect for me on that. It's, you're running around, you kill kind of overland enemies, you get those stacks up, and you're just kind of running around, and you got crazy movement speed while you're going and collecting resources, and just kind of kill the enemies in between. And I think it'll greatly kind of increase my efficiency on resource gathering.
I can see that for sure. Yeah, like I said, kind of like just like these others here, like Crusader. I doubt it's going to be, no one's going to be like breaking the bank to run out and get this thing, but it's certainly going to be used more than it was before. Absolutely. At least a couple of people like you and some other people like that sort of thing. You can actually use it for something. Whereas, yeah, the way it is right now.
Oh, man.
Like Dr. Professor says, Dr. Professor, what's the point of playing ESO if you can't Blade of Woe a trial boss and get that epic buff? Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a role play set only right now.
Yeah. And the funny part, we talked about it when it happened, but when they nerfed Major Berserk, it was just sad.
Yeah.
It's
Major
like,
Berserk's not even a super great buff anymore. Grizzly Khan says it's now it's good for massacring innocents. Certainly. That's what I like to do in my free time. Mid-Year Mayhem is now going to be called White Strakes Mayhem. So I think that's a better name, honestly. I kind of like the way that sounds. And Mid-Year Mayhem happens twice a year, and it's not in the middle of the year, so it makes sense. Getting near the end here, some other miscellaneous stuff. They made some refinements to the ability bar timers. I've definitely noticed some inconsistencies there, so I'll be happy to see that. Some new performance options for PC players that have like weaker processors, so you can look out for that. There's going to be some interaction priority changes, I guess is how they worded it. So things like if you're trying to collect a resource node and there's an NPC standing around, like what's going to get prioritized so that your character is actually able to do the thing you want to do. They're making some refinements around that. I know now with companions being a popular thing, that's something that's coming up a lot. Is like you're trying to just do a thing, but the only thing the game will let you do is talk to your companion, Davis, we had talked about this before. I wonder if this will have any effect on nameplates.
We got to get these nameplates figured out.
Like, how many times has this happened? You're at the end of a dungeon, the boss is dead on the ground, and someone's like, hey, I'm looking for this piece of gear, and you're like, oh, sweet, it's Davius who's asking for that in the chat. So which one is Davius? You look around, you can only see the boss's nameplate. Even though he's dead on the ground, it like overrides everyone else's nameplate in the room, and that's all you can see. You
can aim your cursor dead in the sky, and it's going to show you that dead boss on the ground.
Yeah, you can be facing away from the boss. Doesn't matter. That's what you're going to see.
That's the only thing you're seeing.
I would like them to. Hopefully, it's included in that. They don't say that it is, so I'm not expecting it. But I would love to see them update the priorities with that kind of stuff. Dead NPCs. Nameplates should be very low priority. Alive players, that
very high priority
should be a very high priority. So we'll see. Now we're getting fancy. We now have a reply button in mail. 2021. Finally, we got it. Reply button in mail. Handful of new collectibles added to the base game. I don't know if that happens very often. Just some new stuff in the base vanilla game without buying the DLC that you can go and collect some new mementos and stuff. It's kind of neat. You can look forward to some new homes, some new furnishings that'll be coming with this update. And otherwise, the only stuff really in the notes besides all that stuff is just the usual slew of fixes and random refinements and stuff like that. Davis, anything we didn't touch on, or anything you wanted to touch back on, or anything like that?
I think we covered a good amount. I think we got it.
Emails and shout outs. No emails this week. Shout out to Grizzly Con and Dr. Professor for joining us in chat. Really,
for sure.
really great fun to have you guys here. Gives us a little bit of pep in our step, I think. It makes it a lot more fun for us. And I like just having that extra input and those additional prompts to kind of go off of. It helps move the show along, and it's really, really cool.
I always appreciate it. I feel like it very much makes us a little less robotic in a way.
Yeah, I think so. It kind of it makes the whole thing feel a lot more natural, and it makes it easier for us to kind of just get into the groove and that kind of thing. So thank you guys a lot. If anyone listening is interested in joining the Discord and perhaps hanging out while we record, you can email us at scrollandpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know you want to be invited to the Discord. Of course, that doesn't mean you have to join us on the recordings. You can just hang out in the Discord and enjoy the memes and theorycraft discussions and whatnot. You can also email us other stuff like suggestions for the show, questions you want to hear us answer. If you want to tell us how cool we are, whatever. It's any of that stuff goes. Scrollandpodcast@gmail.com. Davius, give us a Stoons Goons plug. What do you got?
Stoons Goons, best guild. We're having a new requirement. You have to leave all your other guilds to ensure Stoons Goons is your number one guild on your list.
I like that. I like that. If you want to join the Stoons Goons, send me a screenshot of your guild list showing me that you have 0 guilds.
Existing members, start making the changes. Let's make this happen. That's very important to us. This is an important part here.
Stoons
really, really what the goal for Stoons Goons at this point is to not let Ket talk you into leaving the guild. Just if you're in, please stay. Don't let Ket talk you into leaving. We're not letting him nearby the door of the guild hall anymore. We don't ever see people if he's by the door. He talks them into not coming in.
I will say I utilize the guild hall almost daily. We got a trial dummy in there. We got a transmute station in there. Working on getting some some kind of crafting stations. We haven't decided which set exactly.
There's a real dilemma between, if we get the Stoon set in there, of course, or, maybe a more usable set.
We either go with the meme. We either just go with the meme and get Stoons in there, or we go with something actually useful like Heartland Conqueror.
Heartland Conqueror is a pretty good one. Maybe
we can do both in time. Stoons Goons is the name of the guild. Scrollandpodcast@gmail.com. It's really just a social guild is the thing.
For sure.
Once in a while, we'll join up and go do some BGs or maybe run around in Imperial City. We talk about doing some events once in a while, but maybe we get some more people in there. We get some more chat activity. We might just do some of that stuff. What else? What else we got?
I think that's it. I think that's a cast.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you next time. What? I don't think that was a very good ending. We'll catch you next time, and we'll catch you next time.